Hey everyone, welcome to the second season of the Migrant Moods podcast. This episode is powered by our new partners, Transmission Rand House. This podcast is led by young people from We Belong, the only nationwide charity set up and run by young migrants who have grown up in the UK and campaign for our rights to belong in a country we call home. We've been running the podcast for more than 2 years now because we want to speak up about all aspects of our immigration experiences and grow our community by reaching out to young migrants who identify with our stories. And we also want them to reach out to us to make a change. So please do make sure to share the podcast with anyone that's listening, and if you're and follow us. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure to like and subscribe. Before we kick off with this episode, the mood word that we've chosen for this episode is insightful. I'm Abdullahi, and I am one of the hosts for this episode. And here today I have Keshon Smith, who is also co-hosting with me today. And Keshon.
Happy spring, everyone. We're excited to kick off the season with an insightful episode about careers in law. Today we're diving into part one of this discussion, the Barrister route. And we have an amazing guest joining us today, Hannah Lucy Wright of Ofgem, the energy regulator. She's an employed barrister.
Try.
Thanks for being here, Hannah.
Try. Thank you, Keshon. Yes, Hannah is here with us. Thank you, Hannah. So Hannah is here today to share our experience as an employed barrister. And so we're going to dive into the different paths within the barrister profession, the challenges and the rewards of the bar. And so, before we dive into details, please, Hannah, welcome. Please, can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm Hannah, and I want to start by saying I'm absolutely thrilled to be here, being hosted by your amazing organisation, We Belong, and especially to be here with two highly talented, incredible, aspiring barristers who are going to be making waves in the legal profession and already are making their mark. So thank you so much for having me. It's my absolute pleasure.
We're so honoured.
No, thank you.
So excited.
And a bit of background about me is that I'm an employed barrister. As you mentioned, I started my legal career in an amazing charity called the Free Representation Unit, who provide free representation for Social Security and Employment Tribunal claimants. But since then, I've had about 10 years in the civil service.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So starting with training as a barrister in the government legal department, working for a number of different government departments. And I've been qualified now for about 7 years. Woo! And in the last couple of years, I've been working for Ofgem, who is the energy regulator. And I'm appearing today in a personal capacity, but excited to tell you more about the employed bar route and also the self-employed bar route, because I have done a secondment in the self-employed bar, and I have a lot of friends and work with a lot of self-employed barristers.
Cool.
And that secondment was with Landmark Chambers, I believe it was.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. That's cool. Wow.
Heavy hitters.
So we have a very special guest here today, guys, as you can see. Thank you, Hannah. So can you briefly explain to us kind of what inspired you to choose a career in law?
Yeah, of course. So my interest in law started with a very personal and significant experience when I was 11 years old. So my sister was actually adopted into our family at 7 months old as a baby, but the overall adoption process took many years, and when it was finally the final adoption hearing, my sister, my brother and I attended the case in the Royal Courts of Justice, which is a very amazing
grand building
in the middle of central London.
I'm sure we're all used to it by now.
Yeah, you've spent quite a lot of time there recently, I know. So I was completely awestruck, and we had the hearing, and it basically finalised my sister's place in our family, and it was the most amazing, emotional and joyful moment for us. And we were so lucky as well because we were getting such a positive outcome for our family, and a very positive experience of the legal system after a long journey to get there. But even more kind of special, after the hearing, the judge actually took her to her offices at the back of the courtroom and introduced us to her dog called Maggie, and gave us, I still remember, and gave us chocolates because she wanted us to be able to feel so joyful and celebratory. And I think that showed me that there was this human side of the law, and that these were people making decisions in courts, and we were really lucky to have her as our judge. And I know that not everyone has a very positive first experience of the legal system, so we were very privileged to have that experience. I think seeing how the judge and the barristers in the case also helped to bring our family together made a lasting impression on me. And from that moment, I started reading a lot about human rights, about the law more broadly, and was particularly interested in...
We love a fellow human rights.
Thank you. Yes. And I was reading especially about people being detained in Guantanamo Bay, and became very
That's become very
enthused.
topical.
And still a live issue. And unfortunately, and I basically decided that I wanted to study law at university.
And I think in general, like, this is why, like, for me, I've become so interested in law. It's the human aspect of it. Yes, there are the legal aspects and making sure, like, you do the right things, but, like, the human interaction and just hearing how, you know, the judge, like, took your sister to her room, and it made me emotional, being like, you know, the human aspect and making sure that your sister was okay and comfortable and your family was comfortable in the courtroom. Because as you said, not many people love anything about the court or police or anything like that. So just even hearing that just makes me even reaffirms kind of why, you know, I love
general matter. You know, the law can come across as very antiquated at times. You know, very intimidating. As you said, not a lot of people have the best experience with the law. So it's great to see that people are being human.
Definitely.
In the profession.
And I think the point you make about antiquated is really important, because the barrister profession in particular is still more antiquated than some other professions. Obviously, wearing a horsehair wig and a flowing black gown is not your usual professional wear. But that's why I'm really excited to talk about the profession and hopefully bust some myths.
Yes. So let's break things down and get a better sense of what the difference is between being a self-employed and employed barrister. What's the difference?
Of course. So self-employed barristers work independently as kind of individual practitioners, and they're part of what is called a set of chambers. So a chambers is basically a group of barristers who share office space and administrative support, but they operate individually, and they will basically pay kind of monthly fees to be able to use the space and to be able to access the administrative support. But they are responsible for their own work, they find their own clients, and they manage their own workload, and they even handle their own finances. So they've got a lot of flexibility. They've got the flexibility to choose what kind of cases they're working on, and they often specialise in quite specific areas of law. And this path basically offers loads of independence and the potential for very varied, interesting work. But it also comes with effectively the challenge of kind of running your own small business. And you need to keep the clients coming in and kind of build up a client base and build up a reputation. And in general, it's not a hard and fast rule, but in general, self-employed barristers might be slightly more likely to spend time in court compared to employed barristers.
And then why would that be?
I think in general, in employed barristers end up doing a bit more kind of advisory work, which is work kind of behind the scenes to support an organisation to comply with the law. So I can tell you a bit, actually, if you'd like now, about what an employed barrister role normally looks like.
I mean, if you'd like.
If you'd like.
So employed barristers normally work for a specific employer, so like a law firm or a government department or a company. So you're just a normal employee, and that means you get a regular salary. You have a more structured work environment. You're probably more likely to be working in a bigger legal team, and on the flip side, you probably have slightly less flexibility and independence about the work you're doing, and you might be working. I think it's probably fair to say employed barristers are more typically working on maybe a broader range of types of work. And you may also appear in court. So plenty of employed barristers do court work. But equally, as we've already said, you might do a bit more advisory work, which is that kind of behind the scenes, doing your research and writing up advice.
See, this sounds a lot like the sort of work that I'd expect a solicitor to do.
Yeah.
So what's the main difference between those two paths? You know, being an employed barrister and then being a solicitor.
So I think there's no hard and fast rule, and I think actually increasingly even the barrister and solicitor profession can kind of there's a bit of overlap because I know you're going to talk about this in future episodes. But there's the solicitor route also has you can be a solicitor advocate.
Yes, that's true.
Basically, almost the same as being a barrister, and a lot of barristers now do work directly with clients without solicitors in the mix as well. So I think it's fair to say that the whole legal profession is sort of a bit more fluid than it used to be, a bit less rigid.
Because I had a question because I want us to also clear this now because for example, like I've met so many people that often get confused about the term lawyer. It's like because it's in the UK when you say you're a lawyer, it's either you're a solicitor or a barrister, and for example, like with my mom, she gets she gets really confused, and I try to tell her like it's both the same thing. They're both lawyers, and she's often like saying, "Oh, barristers are more superior." I'm like, Mom. So can you please like explain what like the term lawyer means in terms of are they being a solicitor or barrister is the same as being a lawyer, or is there something different to that? Did that make sense?
Yeah, that does make complete sense. And I think that's why I think a lawyer is just either a barrister or a solicitor. And actually in the civil service, you normally have a mixture of barristers and solicitors in legal teams. And you're actually doing most of the time the same work. Right. Although legal work in the civil service is its own unique kind of work as well, which I'll talk a bit more about later.
Thank you so much. So Hannah, please could you share with us what a typical day looks like for you as an employed barrister?
I think the first thing I should say is there's no typical day for me.
And that's your job a bit too much.
And that's probably why I love my job, because it's really varied. So in the past, I've worked for a lot of different government departments, and I've worked on so many different areas of law, which I really love. I love variety. And in previous roles, I've done advocacy in tribunals, and I've worked on drafting new legislation, which is a kind of unique type of work to civil service legal roles, which is really exciting. So that kind of work involves kind of, for example, helping to ensure that some proposed legislation is going to achieve the government's intended outcomes, but also that it's consistent with human rights law, and that it fits with other pre-existing legislation. And that kind of work might involve you actually giving advice to government ministers, or even kind of presenting on proposed legislation to committees in Parliament. So you're kind of at the heart of politics. You're providing legal advice. In my current role, I don't go to court, but my days are still very dynamic, and I never know exactly what to expect. So I do spend a lot of time doing legal research and writing detailed pieces of advice, which can be kind of similar to anyone listening who's a law student. It's not that dissimilar to writing a law essay, and sort of looking at things from both sides, and then landing on where you think a judge would land. And I also meet with my clients frequently. So my clients are other civil servants, decision makers within Ofgem, and I will maybe advise them if they need to make a decision or they're developing a policy. I will give them legal advice during meetings on what course of action they may lawfully be able to take. And that part of my job is kind of like a problem-solving exercise, which I really enjoy. You're looking at the facts, you're looking at the law, and you're trying to sort of work out how to achieve the right outcome. And what I really love about my job is that...
Because I was going to ask you, why did you choose the employed bar rather than self-employed?
That's a good question. So I think for me, I've mentioned the variety, and I think... the employed bar route is the only way to work in the civil service legal world, and I really love that world because your job is always about upholding legal standards, and there's a real public interest element, which I feel really passionately about, but also as a working mum as well. Being in an employed role gives me some stability and some flexibility, and I'll talk a bit more about that later.
Yeah. Can I just say she's a very cool, very, very cool mom. So, doing amazing.
Thank you. Not sure about that.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced in your career as an employed barrister?
Yeah, of course. So I think one of the biggest challenges I faced in my career is probably the same biggest challenge for anyone going into the bar, which is just to get into the profession in the first place. So it is highly, highly competitive, and and it's particularly the trickiest part is securing a place for what's called pupillage, which is the training period that you have to undergo, where you're on the job, training on the job, and there aren't that many pupillage placements available across the country. So, and there are more people applying than places for training. So that is very hard work, and it does require a lot of perseverance, and also I think just getting used to rejection and not taking it personally, and knowing that it's a numbers game, but equally being able to take on feedback and sort of realize which applications you're doing well with and which ones you're not, and how to continuously improve your CV and your applications. And I think you have to go in with your eyes open that it's going to be jumping a lot of hurdles. I tried to just do a deep breath every time I got a rejection email and keep going.
I mean, you guys have been very helpful in trying to teach me to, take it with pride and learn to endure.
Absolutely. And it's an art doing an application, doing an interview. It's something you've just got to perfect, and you just get better at it with time. So that's why perseverance is key. So that was probably my biggest challenge. I had so many rejections, but I got there, and actually I ended up having my pupillage in the civil service in the government legal department, and it was perfect for me. So I think you kind of have to have some faith that the right opportunity will come at the right time, and you just got to keep going until you get there. So that was probably the first big challenge. And then for me, the second biggest challenge has been juggling motherhood with my career. So I started my pupillage while I was pregnant, which is quite unusual.
See why I say she's cool, guys?
No.
Freaking cool.
So thank you. So I actually ended up going on maternity leave during the middle of my pupillage, which again, fairly unusual. And then,
but it's cool that they allowed you.
They did.
would not expect that from most employers.
No, absolutely. And I think in the self-employed bar, going off on maternity leave in the middle of a pupillage is probably not happened many times. But it's not to say it can't happen. And I was really lucky. I was really well supported, and I actually came back and completed my pupillage part-time, which is also unusual, and sort of returned to work really sleep deprived, trying to learn how to be a barrister. And since then, I've also had another maternity leave and had the juggle of working and looking after the kids during lockdowns when they couldn't go to nursery or school. But actually, the positive note is, although it was a challenge, I did find my employer to be very supportive, and you know, I fell ill when I was pregnant. I was given whatever flexibility I needed, and I wanted to kind of give that positive note that although there have been challenges surrounding juggling motherhood with being a barrister, I think that I've been really lucky. I've been really well supported, and that minimised that challenge for me. And I think that my experience of flexibility is not unique, and I think that historically the legal profession has not been very supportive or inclusive or easy for anyone who has kids or caring responsibilities, health conditions, any kind of additional constraints. But I think increasingly the legal profession as a whole, and that includes the bar, is making a lot of progress in that space. And that's making it easier for people from different backgrounds and with different responsibilities and circumstances to pursue their careers at the bar, which I feel very happy about.
Oh, that's lovely. So I guess following on from the challenges question, it would be great to get your advice on, you know, I mean, to aspiring barristers, but particularly aspiring employed barristers. What advice do you have for us?
So, firstly, it sounds like a bit of a cliche, but I do think it's really important to show your personality and be yourself as you're making applications and going to interviews, because I think your unique background and experiences can be your strengths. So, for example, if you've had experiences yourself with the court system, that is going to make you way more empathetic in representing your own clients and have better client handling skills as a result. And so that's something I think you can draw on and you can talk about in your applications or in your interviews. I think that because it's such a highly competitive field as well, having an element of personality and individuality helps you to stand out. So I would say don't try and fit yourself to the mold of what you think a barrister should be when you're writing your applications, and show yourself.
Thank you for that, because that's something that I've personally been struggling with, is because you're right about if you have experience with the legal system. Like for me, in my head, it's, you know, being a lawyer, it's about, you know, being empathetic and it's about the interest of the clients. So, but sometimes I struggle with, like, am I being too empathetic? Am I being too nice? Am I being too kind? Do I have to be more like strict and being like, you know, learn to say no, or do I say yes too often? So just even hearing that really helps. It's, you know, it's not about, you know, you being soft, you know, about your personality, about who you are, not losing who you are when you eventually get there. So yeah, thank you for that.
No, and I think I've become more and more myself as my career's gone on, and that has been really nice to realize you can kind of put your own personal mark, and some barristers might be a bit more aggressive in their manner, and that's fine, and that works really well for them, and others might be a bit softer and a bit more gentle, or a bit more humorous, or whatever is your style. And I think you need that. The last thing you want, any judge wants, is to go to court and listen to monotonous voices all in the same style. So I think they like to, even the judges like to see, you know, different personalities coming in and different advocacy styles as well.
I mean, I have loved seeing judges and barristers in action in the courtroom. But
I loved what you said about including your experience with the court system, because I remember I was having an issue and I called you to get some advice, and you were very, very helpful, because I was like, I'm a little bit worried about bringing up my experience in the immigration tribunals. And you were like, I understand why you'd be worried, but, if they don't accept you, would you really want to work for them? You know? Yeah. So it's hard to do, but I think that your advice, it's helpful to bring that experience in to your application, because you're demonstrating that you can relate to your clients, you can empathize, you can do all the client care stuff. That will make your career. So really do appreciate that.
No, and I think I've had to take my own advice, and I didn't take my own advice maybe at points early on. So I remember having some job interviews in my late 20s when I'd already had both my kids, and I thought I shouldn't mention that I was a mum, because I thought they would be put off and think that I wasn't going to work so hard. But then I felt I was really kind of suppressing myself. And in the last few years, I always make mention of the fact I'm a mum, because that's part of who I am. And if an employer won't support that, then as you said, it's not going to be for me.
Yeah.
So, yes, I was going to ask. Yeah. Yes, what does like a day in the life of a self-employed barrister look like? What does that look like for?
Because obviously I've been talking more about the employed.
Yeah.
So I had a 6-month secondment to Landmark Chambers, which gave me a good insight into the kind of different working styles. But I think, as I've already talked about, there's so much variety. So it really depends maybe what kind of law you're practicing, what your typical day would look like. So, for example, a criminal barrister might spend pretty much every day in court, sometimes many hearings in a day, representing clients in trials, bail hearings, and their days probably start quite early, preparing for court appearances, reviewing case files quickly, and meeting with clients or witnesses. By contrast, if you're a commercial barrister working for companies in big commercial cases, you might only be in court literally once or twice a year, or less. And again, your work is maybe a bit more on the advisory side, like we were discussing, is quite common in the employed bar, where you're doing they would be spending a lot of time in chambers doing legal research, drafting legal documents, providing written opinions on the law, and maybe having big conference calls with the companies they represent, discussing case strategies, or maybe even negotiating settlements. So very different typical days within the self-employed bar as well.
You have one that's like in court, like maybe every hour, and then you have one that's like in chambers, like all the time. That's really that's really helpful. Thank you. Okay, Hannah. So for anyone that doesn't have any idea about how to get to the bar, how do they get there?
So there are different. Well, there's one main route to take, and there are some alternatives I'll talk about afterwards. But I think the main route to take is you need to start with a law degree, and that can either be by doing a 3-year undergraduate law degree, like Keshon over here, who's currently in his 3rd year at university, or you can do another kind of degree and then do a 1-year, it's called a conversion course, where you kind of convert your undergraduate degree to become a law degree. So you do all the same modules of law but crammed into 1 year. And then once you've done, that's kind of the academic element. So that's the degree element. The second stage is what's called the vocational element, kind of practical element, which is where you, it's called the bar course, and you basically spend the year learning about the practice of being a barrister. So you do, you get lessons on advocacy, and you do lessons on court procedure.
So cool.
It's very crammed. Yeah.
I've seen that white book.
Yes.
I know. I saw it when I was on my marshalling with Judge Matt. I saw when I was on break. I saw the immigration handbook,
Some hefty books that you go through, a lot of memorization.
Yeah.
But actually the exams there are not too hard because they're mostly multiple choice.
Multiple choice.
So
that's one.
you just need to memorize a lot.
Yeah.
The bar course is a very extortionately expensive course, and you don't get the same kind of student funding that you do for undergraduate.
Yeah.
So, but there is a lot of there are a lot of different sources of kind of scholarships and funding available. So I would recommend looking up the Inns of Courts, who basically all barristers are a member of an Inns of Court, and they kind of play a role in kind of training and also supporting the barrister profession. And they offer a lot of different scholarships. So I would look at them. A lot of the law schools that offer the bar course also offer scholarships. And there are various other kind of charities and organisations that may be able to support as well. So I would recommend kind of looking all of them up and looking into timeframes for applications compared with timeframes to applying for the course itself.
If I may, because I've applied for bar school and I've applied for a scholarship.
Yeah.
Does it really matter which you apply to? Which bar school or which inn you apply
Not
to?
really.
No.
Not really. So it doesn't, no one will ever look at which bar school you went to.
Yeah.
And no one, I mean, it's sometimes a point of interest because there are 4 Inns of Court. It's a very kind of old historic thing. And it's quite nice when find out a barrister is at your Inns of Court, because it means you might see each other at an event there or something, but it doesn't really matter. So it's just personal choice. And it may also be because one inn offers scholarships you're more interested in, or interesting events that you're more interested in. But I would a lot of them host events for budding barristers. So I would look on their websites, see what they're offering, and they have kind of admissions teams who you can chat to and about kind of what's required and what they can offer.
Yeah, and they tend to be quite friendly, actually.
They are. They're really friendly. They're really friendly, and I think they're also playing a big role in trying to kind of open up the legal profession and support people from different backgrounds as well.
And actually, speaking about being open a bit more about the profession, I'm hearing rumours about the barrister apprenticeship.
Yes, so I will come to that actually shortly. To finish on the traditional route, the final element is the pupillage, which I talked about before. So that's the 1-year practical training where you're kind of under the supervision of an experienced barrister, and it's divided into 2 6-month periods, and you'll normally do kind of one type of work in the first 6 months, and you're just following around other barristers, kind of helping them with their work mostly. And then in the second 6 months, they call it being up on your feet, and you'll start going to court and doing your own hearings. You'll still have supervision and support. But when you finish that year of pupillage, you are a barrister. So that's the kind of traditional route complete. But I'm so glad you asked about the barrister apprenticeship route, because that is a new alternative avenue to qualification, which is not actually available yet, but is in the pipeline pretty soon. I think within the next, maybe even sometime this year, some providers will training providers will start offering barrister apprenticeships. So keep your eye on news updates on that. And that will basically that's intended as a kind of more accessible one-stop shop route to qualifying as a barrister. It would kind of combine the academic study, the vocational training and the practical experience over a slightly longer kind of 5-year period, but it's all in one place basically. So keep your eye out for that. And I think just to finally mention as well, there is the option of becoming a solicitor and then later in your career deciding to become a barrister and cross-qualifying. It's quite easy, actually quite quick to cross-qualify. So if you're listening to the next episode that's about becoming a solicitor and you're a bit torn, there is always the option of going down one route first and not changing your mind, but wanting to progress in a different way later.
Amazing. Thank you. Because I also know that you wanted to ask us a question.
Yes, so I did. I was talking there about the traditional routes of training, I was thinking to myself that you two are actually much better placed than I am right now to talk about that, because that's where you're at now. You're both in the middle of those stages. So yeah, I'd love to hear from both of you about where you're at now and what your experiences are.
Do you want to
so-
start off, Keshon?
Yeah, I think we're at different stages.
yeah.
You know, you're a master's graduate, postgraduate.
Yeah.
Honestly, English isn't working for me today, is it?
I think it's working pretty well.
I mean, it's a Friday, so.
But yeah, I'm in the final year of my undergraduate degree, and at this stage, I've already submitted applications for bar school, as I said. I've submitted a scholarship application to one of the Inns of Court, and I've submitted a couple of pupillage applications, so I'm really just waiting at this point for a lot of things to come through.
And for me, as Keshon said, so I've completed a master's degree, human rights. So I've applied and got a place at University of Law to do my law conversion course, hopefully in September of this year. So at the moment, I'm just waiting for the Inns of Court to open up law conversion course scholarship applications, and then I'll apply for that. And I'm also looking at other funding options just in case I don't get a scholarship funding from the Inn of Court. As Anna said, you have to look at other funding options. So that's what I'm doing. So yeah, I have to do my law conversion first, and then hopefully the bar course. But yeah, at the moment I'm just waiting to get a scholarship so I can do my law conversion.
And you're also a past scholar with the Inner Temple, which is another really great scholarship scheme that listeners
right.
might want to look up if they're,
Yes,
they're
that is
interested
right.
in bar.
Thank you, Hannah, for that, because yes, I am currently a past scholar with Inner Temple. So with the past scheme, it's essentially for aspiring barristers from underrepresented backgrounds, and where you essentially get different lots of opportunities for mini pupillages, and mini pupillages are essentially a couple of days or a week max work experience where you shadow barristers and see what they do and practice. And then you learn about advocacy skills and networking, and then you also get to experience, having dinners with barristers and networking, which I'll be doing very soon. So yeah, the past scheme is essentially to help you kind of get an idea of what the barrister profession is, and it's for people from underrepresented backgrounds. So if you have a disability, or you're from the LGBTQI plus community, or any lower socioeconomic background. So it's very helpful, and I really enjoyed being a part of it. And that's actually one of the very first few things that I saw that really helped me to kind of have a better understanding of it. And thanks to Hannah, after countless rigorous interview practice, she really helped, made sure that I did get a place there, and it's been life-changing ever since. And actually also got me closer to the Inns of Court.
That's lovely. Definitely all credit to you.
Yeah. All credit to you. So yeah, you should check out the past scheme with Inner Temple, and the other Inns of Court also have similar schemes as well. So have a look at that and see kind of what the barrister profession is like.
Yeah. And I think that we haven't discussed at all, and it's quite dear to my heart because I love it, is mooting.
Yes.
If you want to tread this path, I cannot impress upon you enough.
Yeah.
Mooting.
Yeah.
Well, what?
Please.
Tell
The
us
reason-
about your most impressive mooting experience.
Share it, please.
Before we get to that, I'm going to explain why mooting is important.
Okay, fine.
Because typically speaking, those who want to be barristers, they're typically viewed as, or rather, they typically say that they want to be barristers because of advocacy.
Yeah.
And mooting gives you the opportunity to really exercise those skills and learn how to be a good advocate, until you get your bar course training and realize I have a lot to learn. But yeah, I did a Supreme Court mooting competition a while ago.
See my co-host, guys.
Yeah, it was good fun, in the Supreme Court in front of a Supreme Court judge, and I won.
Yes.
And
See,
got
guys?
my face plastered all over its materials.
See, guys, we already have a barrister
Very
here.
deservedly. Very deservedly.
We already have another
Yeah.
barrister here, guys.
Yeah.
See?
Oh no, 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, you'll also have to get used to bragging about things, because it's one of the core skills that you'll have to use when applying for people
Pupillage,
scholarships.
yeah.
It's quite difficult, actually.
Yeah.
It's hard to
But
make
make
stuff
sure
up.
when you're speaking to people about it, make sure it's humble bragging, but
Yeah.
you can really brag in your applications.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and that's it. Be yourself, but be
Yes.
your most confident self.
Yes. And actually, speaking about the bar and speaking about networking, I want to kind of go into how we met.
Yeah.
I feel like there is no way we're gonna do an episode about the roots to bar without speaking about how we met, because and that's something that I've really appreciated, and also the past game has really taught me, is because I met Hannah through Keshon, because the both have been very helpful and instrumental in my journey to the bar. So when it comes to the barrister profession, you have to also make sure that it's not only kind of like what you know, it's also about, sadly, it's about who you know as well. So you have to make sure that build your network and build your community and build your support of people that you know you can rely on, and that's something that I can thank Hannah and Keshon enough for, and because they've both been very instrumental in making sure that I build my confidence with it, especially being a migrant that doesn't have any kind of work experience in the legal profession, and being a migrant that's currently going through the asylum seeking system, and kind of building my confidence with that. And so yeah, thank you both so much, because I wouldn't be where I am today with the bar profession without you guys. Thank you.
Well, I think
Don't do that.
No,
Don't do that.
I think that's really really great advice, and you're right that who you know really helps. But I think what I would want to reassure people is that you can make your own network. You don't need to have a pre-existing network. You don't need to know loads of lawyers. You start with your fellow law students, and you find the people that you get on with, and you go to them for peer support, and then you start going to events for like intro networking events for the bar, like some of the conferences where they put on stalls with loads of different barristers and chambers and employers in attendance. And you go around and you start speaking to people, and I would just say be bold and say to someone, if you start speaking to someone, they seem really nice, they seem helpful, say, would it be okay if I take your contact details? Can we stay in touch?
Create a LinkedIn account, guys.
Well, and LinkedIn can be a kind of a good way of doing that a bit more informally, maybe just reaching out to them on LinkedIn and then doing a follow-up message to say, I really enjoyed meeting you. I'd love to meet for a coffee sometime, or I'd love to, is there any chance you'd be happy to look at an application for me? And I would just recommend that you're confident and bold. And the worst thing that can happen is they say no, and it doesn't, they're too busy, and it doesn't, but actually I think most of the time people will say yes and enjoy having that connection with people at the start of their legal careers.
Thank you, guys.
I mean, just to expand upon that, I think that the bar is an especially collaborative profession, very supportive.
Yeah.
So if you approach someone and you say that you're an aspiring barrister, as I learned through you, Hannah, the people in the profession will actually go out of their way to make space for you. So that's why it's important to have to build your network. It's not necessarily to get peopleage. It's to make sure that you have a network of people who are willing to give you advice, to review your various applications. And I think that's why it's important to have a network.
Definitely. And I've benefited from that throughout my career, and I still benefit from that now, getting mentorship from people who are more senior than me and getting advice, and then with my peers being able to vent if I've had a bad day. And so it's just nice having other people who understand that it's a hard profession to get into, that we all need to be there for each other. So
Cool, thank you, guys. So before we wrap up, guys, we want to remind our listeners about some exciting We Belong initiatives that we currently have going on. So at the moment, we, as you guys know, we currently have our campaign Out of the Loop, which is essentially trying for two things. So asking the Home Office to introduce fee waiver for indefinite leave to remain applications for young migrants, and fairer fee for immigration applications. So we're trying to get the campaign back into Parliament. So we are currently working with the other parliamentary working group members at We Belong. I'm also included. So we have been working with a lot of the We Belong young people to ensure we write to our MPs to help us try and get the campaign back into Parliament. So currently we are looking to have a parliamentary debate first, and then eventually to have a parliamentary event again, because as we did our very first one last year. So please, guys, do make sure to if you do want to support our campaign, do make sure to reach out to us, and kind of we have templates and how you can write to your MPs in your local boroughs. So do make sure to reach out to us. And then also we would like to say a big thank you to Transmission Run Us for giving us this space to record this particular episode, guys. So thank you very much. And yeah, I think that's one of the major updates. But and then we also do have a monthly gathering at We Belong. So if you do want to come to one of our gatherings, do make sure to reach out to We Belong via email or just phone up the organization, and yeah, we'll send you a link to sign up and then come and meet us. So yeah.
Well,
and
thank you for coming, Hannah. It's very, very nice to have you here.
Thank you. It's
Thank
been
you, Hannah.
so fun.
This makes me very emotional, but thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been my absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
And thank you to the listeners for tuning in.
Yes.
We hope you found this episode insightful, especially aspiring barristers out there. Stay tuned for the next part where we'll explore the solicitor route.
Yes.
Until then, take care and keep striving for your goals.
Yes. Thank you, guys.